On behalf of Global Knowledge, welcome to today's webinar on exploring the power of Microsoft's Power BI. With us today, we have Greg Lutes. Greg has been a trainer and consultant for almost 20 years. He has extensive experience with many types of desktop and server software and equipment, and is considered an expert in SharePoint and Office 365 technologies.
My name is Greg Lutes, and I will be your instructor for approximately the next hour. The objective here is really just to go over some of the features of Power BI, but more importantly, to take some of the mystery out of what exactly this thing is. It's not just one product or one thing. Let me show you a bit of an agenda of what we're going to talk about, though. So we're going to talk about working with your existing data, creating and sharing reports, how to work with other types of data, and finally, where to find some support. First, what I want to do is start with Excel. So all of this started with Excel. This started with a couple of different plugins, and one of the first plugins was Power Pivot. And the issue that we're having is a lot of our data sits in a lot of different places. It doesn't sit in one database. HR's got theirs, marketing's got theirs, sales has got theirs, operations has got their database. By saying database, I use the word very loosely. It could be an Excel file. They refer to it as their database, but it's an Excel file, really, or a Word document, or a text file, or it is SQL, or it is Access. But the problem is that the data sits in many different places, and that's a problem. The data has to be under the same roof in order to work with it, and we call those data warehouses or data models, depending on how big you want to go. So Excel satisfies some of those problems, some of those issues that you have, and it does so by using a whole suite of different tools. You find the tools when you go to File, and you go to your Options. It's part of your Addins. Addins is where you'll find a lot of cool stuff in Excel. This is where you're going to find a lot of, we'll call it hidden things. You'd figure they'd be Excel add-ins, but the ones that I want to look at, they're not. These are COM add-ins. So first, you got to go to your add-ins and turn these things on. You can check off everything. It doesn't hurt. No harm, no foul. Some of the stuff shows up as buttons, and some of the stuff shows up as tabs, like Inquire or Power Pivot. Power Pivot was one of the very first ones that came out for Excel to help you manage all of this data. In fact, it's a separate product. It's called Power Pivot, and to launch it, you've got to manage. But the idea is that you have to put stuff into Power Pivot in order to make dashboards and to do all these wild things. The others, they show up as buttons, like an insert. This is how you can make three-dimensional maps. It's a bit niche. Obviously, you're going to need postal codes and addresses and things like that, and if your data doesn't have that, you have no use for this, really. The other sits in a data tab, and it's called Get and Transform. In Get and Transform, you can pull data from anywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. Different types of files, databases, loads of different types of databases. These are cloud, some online services, right? I think bet you thought connecting to Facebook was difficult. Now with this, it's a button. Or Salesforce, it's a button. That's it. Or SharePoint, button. And you got lots of other places too. So you can pull in data from just about anywhere. The other button is hidden, and that doesn't help. You see, the other button builds the dashboard. If you click the drop down here, right at the top, where you have your undo, you can go to more commands. When you go to more commands, this is all the popular stuff. So this is all the stuff that's used by all the cool kids. And then if you click the drop down here, you actually have commands that are not in the ribbon. You have commands that you never even see the button for it. Loads of stuff that sits here. For instance, a little off topic, but did you know that Excel talks? It has. For 18 years, Excel has talked. You can get your spreadsheets read back to you. Right? You're doing data entry. You want somebody to read the data back to you. You're also going to want stop speaking cells if you use it. But the real reason that I brought you in here was go to the eyes, because under the eyes, not that you think, but under the eyes is insert Power View report. That's the other one. That's the one that makes the dashboard sort reports. All right. When I click OK, I got that button back. Now, to pull data in, to work with data is fairly straightforward stuff. For instance, here I've got a bunch of different Excel files that sit in my documents. All right, customers, employees, order details, products, shippers, suppliers. And the idea is that I want to know what customers have ordered from us and what's the cost of the shipping on that. All right, so I've got some specific questions. IT has given me these different spreadsheets that has come down from different databases, but they're not connected. So to connect them, I can get the data from a file, like a workbook. Slowly but surely. There we are. And I'll say, yeah, it's my customers. And I import my my customer table.
Sorry to interrupt, Greg. We have one question from Andrea. What version of Excel are you using right now?
Right now I'm using 2016, but a lot of these tools started to show up in Excel 2010, and the rest of the tools showed up in Excel 2013. They're all available for download. With 2016, it actually comes already installed, but the previous versions, you're going to have to download the add-in and install the add-in. So you might need IT's help for that.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. This is the sheet. That's the table. All right. So I can say, yeah, it's the table that I want, and I can load it in there. And what this does is this loads this table under one roof. This loads this into my data model. I'll just do one more. Right, there it is there. Right. There's customers. If I go to Power Pivot, this is how I add it to my data model. So this is kind of my final step. But I've imported the customer table. And incidentally, what you now see is the last thing that I enabled, and that's Power Query. That's what this is. This is Power Query. So if there's information that I don't want here, I don't have to accept all the information. I can extract only the information that I need or only the information that I want. For instance, I'll keep importing here. I'll go to data. I'll grab some more data from another file, another Excel workbook. There's the employees. I'll grab that. And I'll import the employee table. Not a big table. Nonetheless, it's now imported, and now I've got both of these kind of sitting here. I'll grab another file. That was employees. I'll grab my orders. There's the table. That's the sheet. It's the table that I want. Not that it makes a difference, to be honest. But now order details sits under the same roof. I'll just do two more here. I'll do orders, and I'll do products last. Right, there's orders. Shows me an example of what orders looks like. I can navigate this thing, and I can load it in. Now, products, I want to take a look at, because I don't want all the products. So I'm going to go to data here. I'll grab it from a file. I'll choose products, but I don't want the whole thing. When I don't want the whole thing, it's Power Query that I use. To access Power Query, I click on Edit. And when I do that, this is Power Query. Obviously, there's different things that they took out. There's different things that that we want to take out. For instance, here I have a description, completely null. So if it's null, I might as well remove it. And I can do that. I can group columns. I can split columns. I can take a column like this one and extract only the information that I want from this column. To do that, up top, I have this tab called Transform. Transform allows me to do all these different things. I can transpose it. I can rename it, detect the data type. I can pivot. I can extract information right out of this column, or split the column by a certain number of characters. I can parse it. So I have all these different options to fix my data. So if there is information that I don't want, I can take it out. I can also format the columns here too and say, yeah, this is currency. And now it understands that, yeah, this is currency. This is the standard cost. That's the list price. This is the reorder level. So it's really just numbers, right? Whole numbers. That's all it is. Of course, you got a drop down, so you can sort, you can filter. To show you how the...
Oops, sorry, Greg. Interrupt again. To answer another question, does that mean that with all the editing ability that the imported data doesn't have to have a common structure or column headers?
Correct.
Okay.
It doesn't have to, not at all. And a lot of that stuff can be fixed or corrected once it gets imported. So I can do it here. Even adding columns to create that structure. I can say, yeah, I want to create a custom column, and I want that custom column to be a numbered column or a concatenation of two different columns.
And then once you're in this tool, is it, to answer another question, is it also possible to split one column into like date and time? So if you had that
Absolutely.
information in one section, you can split it here?
Absolutely. You basically have all of the normal functions that you normally do in Excel. So I can invoke different functions and use those functions to create other columns to extract time, to extract just the year. You know, I don't think I have a date column here. No, unfortunately, I don't. However, if I did, yes, I could extract the date out of this. Here, I'm just going to split the column. So I'm going to transform, and I'll split the column by a certain number of characters. And I'm going to split these repeatedly, and the number of characters is going to be should be 19. That should do it. I do have some advanced options, so if I do want to get a little bit more specific about it, all right, the number of columns to split into, I say, yeah, just do 2. And here, I've I've taken too many, right? Should have been 18 because I want the space. Well, you'll notice there's no undo, all right? The undo is here. There's the split, and it undoes it. Undoes it, sorry. Horrible language. All right. Split the column, number of characters, like I said, 18 characters, and that's because I'm including the space. Under the advanced options, I don't want 3 columns. I only want 2 columns. And when I click OK, it splits it perfectly. There's product name 2, product name 1. If I don't need product name 1, I can remove it. I can right click on this guy. And oddly enough, rename is at the bottom. So that's a little bit different. I can see product name. And all of those steps are saved here. Because what it's not doing is it's not really creating a copy of the data. In a sense, you're connected directly to the data. So when you hit refresh, it applies all these steps all over again to the fresh data. So what's not happening is it's not you basically redoing the wheel every time you get that new spreadsheet of data. All the steps are saved. I go to home, I close it and load it, and that fixes my products table. Now the product name no longer has Northwind products in front of it. Now each of these sit on separate sheets. Here I've got my customers. I know it's my customers because that's what's highlighted on the right-hand side here. But I can take these customers, I can head to Power Pivot, and I can add it to my data model. When I do this, this opens up Power Pivot. And Power Pivot is a completely separate product. It's a different window. But if you want to work with all this data, if you want to build the dashboards, if you want to build larger pivot tables using multiple data sets, it has to be loaded into Power Pivot. So I basically load them all into Power Pivot. There's my list of employees, add it to the data model. Here's my orders, add that to the data model. I'll add this to the data model as well. And finally, my products added to the data model. Now, if you're going to be using these power tools, one of the things that you have to understand is you have to understand database relationships. And this requires an intimate knowledge of the data itself. In a perfect world, your fields are labeled properly. Everything just kind of goes and it flows with each other. In reality, not everything's going to be named so nicely. And you may have difficulty finding anybody that knows enough about the data. But you are going to have to create relationships between all this stuff in order for all this to talk. See here, orders has a relationship with employees. It also has a relationship here with customers. And this order ID has a relationship with order details. And order details shows all the line by line of what they actually ordered within the order. So here I've got the product ID. And the product ID is related to the ID in products. But you'd have to know all of this. This is the hardest part of Power BI, is creating these connections. But now once all these connections are created, then you go ahead and you can make one massive pivot table if you want. And now you can use all of the different fields, right, that you wanted to. I can take the company name and drop it into the rows. I can then take the orders table, and I can take a look at the shipping fee and see the overall shipping fee that we pay per company. And then maybe I'm curious about, okay, well, which employee services which customers? I can take the employee's first name and drag it and drop it above company. And now I can see who belongs to who. And I can keep going. I can grab other fields, but because there's relationships between all this stuff, it makes it simple and easy for me to build a pivot table or dashboard or whatever else. And yeah, if I do want to build that dashboard, there's Power View. Power View opens up in a separate sheet. It does require Silverlight to be installed. So you should have that installed already. It's Microsoft's version of Flash, but here we go. And same deal. I can grab customers and grab the company name and drop it into fields. The difference here is the visualizations. With a pivot table, you got a pivot table. Pivot table is also called a matrix. But then I can start to grab, I don't know, say city. Put city above this, so it's all, I can see all the different cities that they belong to. Or better yet, not cities. Let's do states. All right, so let's go state, province. All right. See what state, province they're part of. Awesome. And then I can take that shipping fee, right? There it is. Take that shipping fee, drop that in here too, but then choose a different visualization, like say a map. I'll have to enable the geo mapping here by Bing. All right, there it is. Size of the dot denotes what we paid in shipping fees. So bigger the dot, more shipping fees. And it's interactive. I can click on different companies, and it highlights that company for me. This is Power View. And you can have more than one visualization. Right? I can have a map here. And then I could do another one, right, that shows, I don't know, say a company name. Or I can have another one that shows the employee name. Put the employee and grab, what do we got here, first name. Grab that, stick that in a different tile. Now this one's connected, so right, when I click on different companies like this, right, these two are filtered, or they're connected, so they filter each other. Here I could take first name, and I could connect it to, I could connect it to customers. Take company, drop it underneath the first name, and now they're all connected. Shows me the salespeople that work with that company and the company's name. But you're making a dashboard. So this way, I've got a nice little dashboard happening for me. Let's take a look at some of the other Power BI stuff. So this is Excel, and I could literally spend the next few days just going over all the different things in Excel. So let me get out of here. I'll also close Power Pivot. I don't need that anymore. And let's take a look at Power BI. Let's take a look at the desktop version. This is the desktop version of Power BI. It has all the different features that Excel has, plus a lot more. One of the problems with the visualizations in Excel, you can't change the colors. Here, you can change the colors. Here I've got a bunch of different tables. So I've got, I don't know, I could grab from store, right? I could grab, say the city. And I can drop the city into values here. Then I could take another field here, and I'll take, say, sales. I'll go to sales here, and I'll grab, say, last year's sales. I'll drag that into values too. So now I see the city. I see the last year's sales. And then I decide, yeah, you know what? Let's change this a little bit, and let's change the visualization. So I no longer want a table. Instead, I'll change the visualization. I'll change it to a map. Here's the ArcGIS maps. These are quite accurate. I'll make this bigger. And there we are. I can grab something different for say the type. I can go back in the store and, or sorry, for color. And I could grab maybe the store type and drop that into color. And then grab something for time here. For time, I got the month. And I could take the fiscal month and drop it into time. All kinds of different things kind of happen at this point, especially with this type of map. But if there's any colors that you don't like, the title, the background, the border, right? Once I upload this, I have different analytic features that I can use online to kind of analyze the data. And if I don't like this visual, I have loads of other visuals that I can do. Let's try another one. Let's do one more with this one. I'm just going to do a basic area chart. So I'll insert another sheet. I'll just do a basic area chart here. So I'll grab sales. I'll grab last year's sales. And I'll throw that into my values. I'll grab this year's sales, specifically the value from this year's sales, and I'll drop that in here too. Now what I want to do is I want to grab the month. So I'm going to grab the fiscal month, and I'll drop the fiscal month in here too. Then I'm going to change the report. And I'm going to change the report. I'll change it to an area here. Perfect. There we are. Nice little area chart showing me this year's sales and last year's sales. Now, in Power BI, when I'm building these are called tiles. So you can build all these different tiles. There's sales, there's time. So I can take, I don't know, say, that's the fiscal year. And I can drop this as a separate visual. And I can have this appear as a filter. So if I'm just interested in 2012, I can check off 2012. It looks like I just have 2014 sales. I can also grab other information too, right? Like the store. Here I've got the store type. I've got new stores and existing stores.
So we have a question from, sorry, from Francois about can months be sorted in another way than alphabetically on this graph? Looks like here they're chronological, but can you change the order of the months?
I can't change the order to alphabetical. So
Okay.
because the only way that I could is if the month information was stored as text. Because it's stored as a date, every program is going to respect the fact that it's a date and organize it in a date style. But here I can organize it by the fiscal month. Now it's all organized by the fiscal month. Or I'll get some other options too. These tiles that you see are your reports. And what I'm doing is I'm building a report. It's not exactly a dashboard, not the way the Power BI sees it. I know that if we add a few more things, it definitely sure looks like a dashboard, but not so much, at least not to Power BI. In order to build a dashboard, you've got to use the online service. So at some point, I got to click on File, and I got to save this thing. Once I save it, the next thing you want to do is you want to publish it. And you want to publish it to your Power BI workspace. Everybody gets a workspace. Here it's published it, so if I want to take a look at it, I just have to head to my workspace. And for that, you have to use a web browser and log on to Office 365. Power BI Online is part of your apps. You have loads of different apps. And Power BI is one of them. This is the online service. So when I come here and I go to my workspace, these are my data sets. These are my workbooks, if I've uploaded any. And these are my different reports. If I have any dashboards uploaded, I'll see those here too. I'll just refresh this. So go back to my reports here, and there's my report. There's my Power BI webinar. When I click onto it, it'll bug me about the map. I'll click OK. And there's my report. So the idea is that I can now use these reports and start to build dashboards. The filters are on the right-hand side. So if there's anything that I need to do to it as far as filters go, right? And up top, I have the ability to edit the report if I need to. I can view it in lots of different ways. I can even save it or export it to PowerPoint. I can even embed it inside of a SharePoint uh, site. I can take a look at the usage metrics and see if anybody's actually using this report. I can view any related data. I can make it a favorite. I can subscribe to this, which basically means that I'm following it. And if I want anybody else to see this, I'm going to have to share it. The 3 period buttons on the end just let me know that I've got a little bit more information, a little bit more stuff that I can do, like generate a QR code. I can generate a QR code so that when I'm presenting, if anybody wants to take a look at this visualization, all they have to do is scan the QR code in the presentation. And then it'll take them on their phone right to this presentation. And yes, Power BI is available for every single type of device that I can think of. There's loads of different visuals. If I go to edit this report, this looks almost identical to the desktop version. In fact, there's very, very little difference between the two. If I need to change the visualization, I can. Maybe I want a filled-in map. It'll take a second, but right, there's the location, my legend. My color saturation is going to be last year's sales. Or maybe I want a different type of visualization, right? This is yet another different type of map. Loads of different things that you can do with this thing. It's incredible. I'll switch it back to the arc. And of course, right, if I don't like the background of the border or the title, I can change the title myself. These are the analytics. So if I go to sheet 2 here, head to my analytics. Oh, I'll have to head back to my reports. However, this is sheet 2 and works exactly the same as it did in the desktop version. So the idea is that you build these reports, you upload the reports, and you share them with other people. And then they can take a look at some of these different reports that you have and build their own dashboard. For instance, I can go to reports, click on the retail analysis sample that's here, and build my own dashboard. To build your own dashboard, you pin the visual. So what you're doing is you're pinning it, and it's almost like you're saving it, saving a shortcut to it. So it's not going to take the visual and create something else. This is a shortcut to that report. So I can call this Greg's dashboard. I can go to my dashboard. And now I've got that visual pinned to my dashboard. Once you make your dashboard, you then have the ability to ask questions about your data. So rather than running SQL statements or teaching people how to run SQL statements, I can say, well, what was the gross margin for last year? And let's do it by, or I'll do a store. And let's do that. Let's do that in a funnel. Or better yet, let's do that in a bar chart. Or line table. Column. Let's do a matrix. Get the idea? And then there's my information. I can scroll through it. And then if this is something that I think, you know what? This is good. This is a good report. I need to see this. I can pin it. I can pin the visual to an existing dashboard. Then, of course, go to the dashboard and ask even more questions now. If you're not really sure what question to ask, they even give you a feature for that too. Right. Here I can head to reports, and in reports, I have this thing, and I'll go to the retail analysis sample. It's called Quick Insights. And all I got to do is click on Quick Insights. And then what this does is this analyzes it. And this creates some of those different questions. Now, in order for this really to work for real, what you're going to have to do, honestly, is you're going to have to remove any data in that data set that you're not using. So no more blindly importing whatever data you want. When you use these, you're going to have to import just the data that you can see yourself using. Here, I'll run some quick insights on my human resources too. But I can view those insights when I'm finished, and they're just different visualizations. Segment, there's a correlation between the segment and the buyer, so yeah, whatever. Right. These are different visualizations that I may find quite interesting. Gross margins here. Average sales area in the segment. So yeah, some of it, not so much. Other stuff, yeah, there is.
Hey, Greg, we have a question from Anthony. So if you wanted to show reports to people, do all parties have to have access to Power BI?
Yes, they do. Power BI is a free application for download, so there is a mobile version, and there is like a viewer that you can download, and that way people can take a look at these things. Obviously, the report has to be shared with you, so you do have to have access to the report. But as long as you do, when you click onto the report, it should open up in the correct viewer for you. And if not, you can download Power BI viewers so that you can see the report.
And then is there a way to pull some of these visuals out of Power BI so they can be used in other like PowerPoint presentations or posted on SharePoint so everyone doesn't need access to Power BI?
Yeah, when you take a look at some of the different reports and things, if I go back to the desktop here for a minute, that's definitely one of the options that I have in this is to save some of these as a PowerPoint presentation. So you do have export capabilities. I could probably go on for several different days showing you all kinds of really neat and cool stuff that Power BI can do. Here, I've connected to a web API. So what I've done is I've gone to get data. It's a web page that I connected to. And I'll actually edit the query so you can see this. All right, so this is a website. And I'll tell you what, I'll actually do this again. I'll just do a report here real quick. So what I did is I connected to an API on a website, and I downloaded information from the API. Now, obviously, I need to know, or I had to know what information was on there, and I had to get familiar with the API and all that other jazz. But here I'll just quickly show you how to connect to an API, because this is also quite popular now too. And this one is called swapi.co /API/people. You might recognize some of the names of the people. So I connect to this, it's a list of people, and it tells me, look, it's a list. I can click on list, and this converts the list into records, right? I can then convert the list into a table. And I should have shown you that there's no delimiter on this one. Then I can fold this out. I can tell it not to use the original column name as a prefix. And then I have all these different names, their height, their mass, their hair color, their eye color. But this is a web API that I've connected to. So as this data gets updated, it also gets updated here. But I can also drill into the API. Like here, they've listed out all the different species. So what species the person is, and I can expand this to new rows. And really what this does is this actually points to another API that I can connect to get all the species information. And then use this field to connect to the species table. And then when I'm ready, I just close it and load it. And then I can use all this information and put it in different visuals or whatever. So I can grab their name, and I can grab their height and their weight and their species, and start to build, all kinds of different things from that. What I'm doing, I said, don't know how to put this one. Any questions at all? As I said, I could probably drone on for another few days. There's just so much stuff with this. But hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with Power BI, and some of just the incredible things that you can do with this thing is just amazing. And because you can connect to different websites and extract information from different websites, the sky's the limit. We're just completely inundated with data on the internet. There's open data sources in just about every city now. So if you need subway information or anything like that, you can do some really neat stuff with it.
So I have one question here from Philip, asking, is the link to the species more like a query on demand?
Correct. Very much so.
Okay. And a question too about how we share reports. Things that you're saving, I mean, are they public, or how do you control access to that?
Everything that you share is part of your personal workspace, and everything that you save ends up in your workspace, unless you tell it to specifically publish in a different workspace. Like here I've got the marketing team, sales operation. This is where I could publish different things specifically in these spaces for these teams. But to be honest, the whole workspace is, this in itself is a whole other class, because a workspace is really a SharePoint site, and a workspace is really a team. And a workspace is also a group. So you have all these different terminologies that fall underneath Office 365, yet they all basically mean the exact same thing. So if I publish this to a workspace, I'm also publishing it to a SharePoint site. If I publish it to a workspace, I also publish it to a Microsoft team and an Outlook group. Not to confuse you.
It does kind of lead into another question about is Power BI good for on-premise implementation or only cloud?
At first, Microsoft kind of dug in their heels and said, nope, you got to use the cloud. Everybody has to use the cloud. Too bad. And then they had enough people say, we're not using the cloud. So we're not going to use your stuff. So Microsoft backed down. There is an on-prem version of this. The only things that you don't get if you don't use the cloud is the analyzing. So when you go into a dashboard and you want to ask questions of your dashboard, that is part of the cloud. And when I go to my reports and I ask for the insights, that's also part of the cloud. So my personal opinion, you're not missing much. By not going to the cloud, you're not missing a whole lot. There's other stuff, other reasons that I would move to the cloud, and I would not use on-prem. In general, I don't like using on-premises, and that's just because most people don't have the IT budget to protect the network properly. They don't have those kind of experts online to know when their systems are being hacked or when their data is being breached. And if you don't have that kind of budget, then yeah, you're best to look online and look at on-prem and put it in the hands of real experts.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question before we go into wrapping up. So is there a way to schedule daily reports to be sent to users on mobile devices?
Yeah, there is not send to them, because the idea is that this is up to the user. When there are updates and things like that, they will be notified. There's lots of different ways of getting notified. And some of that has to be with SharePoint. But as far as the data sets go, there is a scheduler that you can set up for the data sets. So you could let everybody know that, hey, look, every Monday, every Tuesday, every 6 hours, the data set's getting updated. So people could sign up for alerts, or they could follow different data sets or different dashboards or different reports, and they would be notified when those things are updated.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Actually, sorry. I'm going back to ones from the beginning. Looking at, we were looking at some add-ins that were in Excel. Was there a cost for those add-ins?
Not at all. Not at all. They're all free.
And where would you go to look at available add-ins?
You can go to the Microsoft Marketplace, so you can jump online. I call it the Marketplace. Shoot, showing my age. You can go to the Microsoft Store, which is what they call it now. So go to the Microsoft Store, and there are hundreds of thousands of add-ins. Get yourself familiar with add-ins, because they're not going away. In fact, Microsoft has a bunch of different products that are centered around add-ins, like Flow. If you haven't seen Microsoft Flow yet, you got to take a look at this thing. It is going to make your life so much easier, and everybody else's life as well. But there's a lot of different add-ins nowadays, and if you haven't been using add-ins for Outlook and Excel and Word, you need to start looking at add-ins. You're doing a lot of manual work that you don't need to do.
Here we have a list of some Power BI courses that we offer, so you can continue learning and engaging with the system. And then you can find those all available on our website, globalknowledge.com, under Training, Microsoft, Office Applications, and Power BI to view the full suite of courses available with this tool. so you can continue your learning. And we also have private group sessions available that can be delivered. So if you're interested in those, please feel free to either reach out to a salesperson or contact us on our website, and we'll get in touch with you.